Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Interfaith service of Remembrance. My name is Roger Sturrock, the Honorary Church of Scotland chaplain, and the reason that I'm speaking to you now is because Joan, who has put all this together, is having problems with her microphone, and so she's asked me if I will do the initial introduction. So welcome, everyone. Special thanks to Joan for putting this meeting together. Before we begin, we will remind you that the service is being recorded. And if this is okay, could you make sure that you mute your microphone? Unfortunately, some of our chaplains are unable to join us this evening. Father Ross Campbell, the Honorary Catholic Chaplain, Haran and Hodiah Lemberger, the Honorary Jewish Chaplains, and the University Chaplain, the Reverend Dr. Carolyn Kelly. She sent her apologies. She's in New Zealand at the moment for the wedding of her daughter. And so we hope that goes really well for her. They are all, without doubt, here with us in spirit. And Carolyn has sent her warm wishes in a message, which I'll share with you now. Good evening and a warm welcome to this Interfaith service of hope and remembrance. I'm currently away on leave, but I'm so pleased our honorary chaplains have joined together in hosting this time of reflection. I'm sure none of us imagined we would be still in this time of virtual gathering and isolation more than a year later. But here we are. This past year, we've been learning how important it is to connect, even in this virtual way, imperfect as it is. It enables us to encourage one another. We can share our burdens. We can share the wisdom of our traditions. We can share our hopes for human life, our communities, and for our world. So I wish you all grace and peace, and look forward to connecting in person when we can. So thank you, Carolyn, for that kind introduction, if you're listening in, and we'll now move on with our time of reflection and our service together. First of all, Linda is going to reflect for us. Please, Linda. Linda, are you there? We'll just see if she is. There's Linda, she's connecting just now. Linda, if you could unmute and you're first on, so we look forward to your reflection.
Right, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm having a little trouble with the connection, so I'm hoping it holds up. I do apologize. Okay. Yes, thank you, Roger. Well, I'm the LGBTQ plus chaplain for the University of Glasgow, and today I wanted to share my reflections, but I also would like to share two little prayers by the as an offering of hope. So I'll do the reflection and then the prayers. My background, as some folks will know, is as a Druid. I'm both a Christian and a pagan, and that will be evident in what I say, I hope, as well as being an LGBTQ plus person. So first of all, reflections. My reflections, lots of difficult memories, lots of high anxiety. It's been a very difficult time for me. I personally have not lost loved ones, but I do have friends who have. And I know how devastating that has been for them. We've lost loved ones, we've lost time and old familiar spaces, and we have literally lost touch. We've lost hugs, we've lost the touch that we crave. And as we approach Beltane, which is when summer transfers over into spring, spring transfers over into summer, we should be celebrating. We should be all fired up with the wonders of the summer season coming. But it seems that we lost a summer, and now it seems that summer is a long way off and maybe not very real to us. It's hard to see the change of the season, and we feel as if we are trapped between two fires. Beltane is a season when two fires are lit, and we might feel like we are caught in between. I have here two blue ribbons, different shapes, different sizes. They are my fire, two fires of Beltane. We feel like we're caught between them, between the stone and the water, between the impasse and the flow. At least that's how I feel. So these two fires, it's not just a dilemma. We want that ice, that stone to flow down into hope, and the hardships that we've had experienced to become something more like a rainbow, and we find hugs and touch again. My first prayer is a prayer for God's presence. Creator Spirit, Singer Divine, Maker of dreams, in the quietness of this place we seek you. You are the flow of spiritual energy coursing through our bodies and souls. You are the imagination, the creativity, the source of all our energy. Throughout the days of our lives, you have nurtured us. It has not always been the kind of life we anticipated, and we have barely perceived your hand in the harshest experience of our days. We know, however, that you are a God of freedom and of love. We cannot avoid the pitfalls of our own carelessness. We cannot escape the pains of existence, some created by human choice, some far beyond our control. We know that we do not face these pains alone. When we suffer, you suffer with us. When we falter before a challenge, you agonize with us. When we share the joy of recovery, you rejoice with us. Help us now to find you in the deepest niches of our own beings and in the hearts of those with whom we share this time of reflection. It is our prayer that this interfaith service of worship may be an unfolding of the full richness of your divinity. Amen. And finally, this one is shorter, and it's from Turtle Island, from North America, a Tewa Indian prayer. Our Mother the Earth, our Father the Sky, your children are we, and with tired backs we bring you the gifts you love. Then weave for us a garment of brightness. May the warp be the white light of morning. May the weft be the red light of evening. May the fringes be the falling rain. May the border be the standing rainbow. So weave for us a garment of brightness, that we may walk fittingly where birds sing, that we may walk fittingly where grass is green. Mother the Earth, Father the Sky. This is the song of the sky loon. Amen. Thank you. I would like to now pass the service over to Roger. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. When you look back over this past year, more than a year since we've been in lockdown, and you reflect on it, there are all sorts of memories that come into your mind, all sorts of emotions which catch up with you. And talking to people over this period of time with the ups and the downs of being in lockdown and then being released and then being locked down again, there's a kind of frustration which has entered people. And the phrase which comes up ever so frequently is, how long? How long is this going to go on for? When are we going to get back to normal? And talking with folks in my own church situation and with others, that has been a very common question. Oh dear, how long do you think this is going to go on for? And when you look at the Hebrew scriptures and the Greek New Testament, you find that the phrase, how long, O Lord, is mentioned at least 22 times, particularly in the Psalms, where the psalmist commonly uses the refrain of frustration. How long, O Lord, am I going to be in the situation in which I find myself? And I suppose we've all, perhaps inwardly or outwardly, asked the question, how long? How long, O Lord? But looking back on the past year, hasn't just been a year of frustration, it's also been a year of opportunity. The opportunity to discover new ways of communication. The very fact that we're meeting together on Zoom is an example of that. And amongst our own folks, we've used Zoom for virtual tea parties where people have just got together to chat, to do things, silly things like Desert Island Discs, which has been the biggest hit of the virtual tea parties, listening to people's choice of music and why. But we've also undertaken Bible studies, and we found that more people have attended through Zoom than they would have done if we had to assemble in church. So Zoom certainly had its positive sides, and I suppose we'll never be quite the same again as we resume normal service, as it were, because Zoom is going to be very much a part of what we do in the future. One of the things that we did in our studies was to watch the film The Way, which is based on a pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela, starring Martin Sheen. And we did a Bible study, a reflection on this film, which was hugely successful and affected and encouraged people in different ways, because it's a journey and we're all on a journey, because that pilgrimage had its ups and downs. And as we look back over the past year, we've certainly had ups and downs. And it reflected a group of rather odd folks to journey together. A well-heeled ophthalmologist from California, Martin Sheen, a Dutchman who is trying to lose weight, but in an unhappy marriage, a lady who had been physically abused by her husband, and an Irishman who was a writer, but had lost the writing muse and had a writer's block. And as they journey on the pilgrimage, all of the problems that they have begin to slowly be resolved as they interface with one another and share with one another. And ultimately they get to Santiago de Compostela and they go into that very famous basilica. and you can see how they are transformed. And I'm not going to say any more in case you want to go back and watch the film The Way, which I would thoroughly recommend. But the past year has certainly been challenging. Certainly at times we have asked often, how long, O Lord? And yet there have been opportunities. And my reflection would be, in the midst of all this, there have been new opportunities. God has spoken in different and sometimes unexpected ways. I'm going to close with an evening prayer of thanksgiving by St. Benedict. Many of you will know of St. Benedict, who introduced his rule in medieval times, and the Benedictine rule is followed by monks and nuns throughout the world. And so here's his prayer of thanksgiving for Tuesday. Almighty Father, in your loving providence, every hair of our head is counted, every tear is noted, and every prayer heard. We thank you for your faithful goodness to us, and ask for a peaceful evening and blessed rest through Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. And now we hand over to Ravinda.
Thank you, Roger. Brothers and sisters, it's an honor and a privilege to be contributing today to this interfaith service. I'd like to start first of all with the traditional Sikh greeting, which is Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Many families throughout the world have been touched by the COVID pandemic. But it's only when it happens to you that the true impact of this virus is felt. At the beginning of this year, 3 members of my family were diagnosed with COVID-19. My sister and my brother-in-law recovered fairly quickly, but my nephew, he suffered greatly, and it was touch and go at times. But the hardest part was that no one could go and help him. And there were times when he couldn't even answer the phone, so we didn't know how he was doing. The paramedics, when they came, said that his oxygen level was not below 90, so they wouldn't take him to hospital. But it was 91, so his oxygen level was really, really low. So that was quite a difficult few weeks for us. As with all other families whose loved ones were sick, our mental health suffered, not knowing what the outcome would be. But during that time of self-isolation and social distancing, we connected through prayer. We remembered that prayer connects the soul to the divine and connects people and communities during any hardship. Although we were physically isolated, we remained spiritually connected in prayer and remembrance. In the Holy Sikh scripture, the Guru Granth Sahib Ji, it is written, when you are faced with anxiety and illness of the body, when you are overwhelmed with household and family commitments, sometimes feeling joy and sometimes sorrow, when you are feeling helpless and restless and you cannot sit or sleep even for a moment, if you remember God, then your mind and body will feel calm and peaceful. He was one of the lucky ones. After 6 to 8 weeks, he recovered, but still suffers the effect of having COVID. But many families have not been so lucky during this pandemic, with over 127,000 passing of loved ones in the UK. Today we remember them, and as a Sikh, I hope and pray that their souls have been reunited with God. I pray that those who are left behind have the strength and the courage to cope with their loss. However, in these unprecedented difficult times, we must always remain optimistic that things will change. As Sikhs, we are compelled to be always optimistic, and in the current climate, we should encourage all to be positive where possible and be there for each other. In the Sikh religion, we have a concept of Chardi Kala, to aspire to have a mental state of eternal optimism and joy, a positive state of mind that never despairs, never admits defeat, and refuses to be crushed by adversities. As humanity continues to face this common threat, let us all work together and realize that together we all have a shared responsibility to help the whole of humanity, share knowledge and ingenuity for the common good. We must remember that prayer nourishes the soul, and remember that there is always hope and things will get better. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I would now like to introduce Shaukat, the honorary Muslim chaplain at the university.
Thank you, Ravindra, and thank you for the invitation as well to speak tonight in this lovely service. And much has been said already by those before me, and a lot of that has been reflected in, and I'm sure we're all experiencing something similar in different ways when it comes to this particular pandemic. For the Muslim faith, I think that obviously one thing we've got to highlight is that we're in the month of Ramadan right now, which is the month of fasting. And as you know, it's the fasting of the daylight hours, so we're still in, we're hungry at the moment at this very hour, so hopefully breaking very soon our fast is, but it's only at the start. We're only at the beginning. This is the 50th in. We've still got about 25 days to go for the full month to end. But the thing about it was that we from one Ramadan to the next Ramadan, it's very much a thing for us to reflect. And going back to last Ramadan, we were still in COVID. We were already spoken about it. Over a year and a half we've been in this situation. And somewhat, but however, from last year to this year, things have definitely improved. So for example, one of the things about Ramadan, particularly for prayers, there's an increase, or there's extra prayers in the evening that should be performed ideally in the mosques. And thankfully now some religious places, all religious places are open, but obviously with some restriction, but however, there is accessibility to those extra prayers. So now, push comes to shove, you can find a place or a mosque or a centre or somewhere where we can pray, and that relief of praying in a community, in a congregation, is really missed. And it's these things during COVID, I think, that we kind of now really appreciate. We take it for granted so long, but when they've been taken away from us for such a long period and now coming back in, those little things are the things that you appreciate very much. That you're able to kind of say even hello to a friend that you may have not seen for a whole year and a half. It's just those little things you appreciate. But however, as we know, and as it's been said, it's been a difficult time. It's been a testing time for people all over, not just in the UK or in Europe, but the entire planet, the entire globe has been affected by this pandemic, which we've never seen in our lifetimes, and hopefully, God willing, we will not see again. But but again, it's affected people, as already been highlighted, in so many different ways in terms of financial, mental health, their well-being, relationships. You know, it's been a testing time for a lot of people. But as I kind of said earlier on about, it's also a time for reflection now that we're coming, hopefully, you know, this light at the end of the tunnel, as Nicola Sturgeon recently said. So at that, you know, hopefully we can start reflecting, going back and appreciate, as we said, what's ahead to that what was before. And you know, in the Quran, there's verses talking about tribulation and talking about you know, tests of people, of prophets, of people of previous nations. But it's quite interesting, in a lot of these stories that we hear, that, you know, we hear a common verse in Arabic, which is ma'al usri yusran, ma'al usri yusra, that with every hardship there is ease, with every hardship there is ease. So hopefully with this difficult time that we've seen, difficult period we've gone through, hopefully we'll come to a point where we will see some ease for ourselves, for our community, for the global community as well, that things are looking up. But at the same time as well, not forgetting the difficulty that we've been through, and also a reflection on, as Ravinder said, about, you know, about people who are no longer with us. You know, we talk about that again, something that we reflect every Ramadan. Those people who spent, you know, we were breaking bread with people last Ramadan who are not here with us this Ramadan, be that due to COVID, which is unfortunate in many cases, or other illnesses, age, or whatever it may be, cancer, or whatever illness it may be. We've lost many people, but it gives us hope that we're here, we have the time, and we're here and spending another Ramadan together as a family, as a community, and given that opportunity. Because one thing that, again, is mentioned in the Quran, it's kind of reiterated, is the value of time. Time is such a valuable thing we can't underestimate. You know, time is gold. You know, it's no doubt about it. You know, and God in the Quran promises by time in a very powerful verse. He mentions wa al-asr, that by time, that God promises that, you know that the value of this thing that God is is promising by, that it's here today and gone tomorrow. And you know, we always have that thing, only if I could have done that, only if I could have gone back there. You know, that's gone. We've got to think of the here, we've got to think of the future. And as I said, moving ahead, hopefully, God willing, we have a brighter future, with our families, with our communities, with able to travel and see people and meet people as well. So hopefully we move on, and we see a brighter future, as Ravinder rightly said there, inshallah, God willing. I would like to pass on to my colleague, Mandy, our humanist chaplain. Mandy.
Thank you so much, Shakit. And it's so good to see everyone. Warmest greetings to everyone. And my heart is warmed seeing everyone and hearing everyone. And thank you to everyone who's joined us for this reflection and service this evening. So I think the first thing I want to say is, as Carolyn said in her bit that she sent for us in her absence, who'd have ever thought? we just would never have thought that we would end up in this place. Life and the universe throw great curveballs at us sometimes, and sometimes maybe it's good that we can't see them coming, but it has been a massive challenge for us all. For me personally, I have dealt with a lot of loss with people that I know and that I love, and help people through that. And for me, one of my biggest sadnesses has been that I haven't seen my parents, who I love dearly and I know love me dearly and have always supported me and loved me hugely in life, for 18 months now. And so in so many ways, we're going through a collective trauma. It's bringing up profound grief, loss, panic over livelihoods, panic over the loss of the lives of our loved ones. In lots of ways, people's nervous systems have barely been coping with a sense of threat, vigilance for safety, and alternating with feeling numb and frozen and shutting down in response. And people are trying to survive poverty, fear, re-triggering of other trauma in their lives, re-triggering of other mental health difficulties. And so, you know, we have been tested hugely. We've been tested to maintain a sense of peace in our hearts and in our minds in very, very challenging times. And we've been challenged by our expectations of life, what we expect and what actually happens. We've been challenged, our patience has been challenged hugely, hugely. And our capacity for acceptance of what is. And I've chosen a couple of pieces that I'd like to share with you and read to you that really have moved me in terms of the remembrance that we're doing, and also holding on to the hope that we have. The first one in Remembrance is a piece that may be familiar to you, and it says this: in the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. And in the opening buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. At the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. In the rustling leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. As long as we live in sorrow and in joy, we will remember them. And so I hope, my sense of hope now is that I'll get to see my parents before too long. I'll be booking a train ticket quite soon. And let our sense of hope remain in every connection that we can make again, all the new connections that we've made, all the connections that we've maintained in challenging times and challenging circumstances, and the connections that we can make in person again, even if we're still at a bit of a distance, in every bud and bloom and blossom and every spark of life. Let us keep that hope. And so the other piece that I'd like to read you now is a piece that is called A Blessing for the Broken-Hearted, and this is by Jan Richardson. Let us agree for now that we will not say the breaking makes us stronger, or that it is better to have this pain than to have done without this love. Let us promise we will not tell ourselves time will heal the wound when every day our waking opens it anew. Perhaps for now it can be enough to simply marvel at the mystery of how a heart so broken can go on beating, as if it were made for precisely this, as if it knows the only cure for love is more of it, as if it sees the heart's sole remedy for breaking is to love still, as if it trusts that its own persistent pulse is the rhythm of a blessing we cannot begin to fathom, but will save us nonetheless. May we continue as a whole human family to love each other and be there for each other. And may we always light a candle in remembrance and in hope. Thank you. So now I would like to hand over to Srihari, our Hindu chaplain, who we have to thank for being one of the main instigators for getting us here and doing this tonight. Thank you, Srihari.
Thank you very much, Mandy, and it's lovely to see everyone. It's traditional to start any Hindu prayer with a small prayer to Ganesha, the remover of obstacles, to Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge and education, and to our teachers, the Guru. So I'll very quickly say this prayer and then give my reflection. Thank you. शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ओं श्री महागणाधिपतये नमः। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणी विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। ओं श्री सरस्वत्यै नमः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुदेवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। ओं श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। So, good evening, everyone. In the past year, we all endured a lot of suffering and we saw a lot of death. Suffering is an integral part of life. And as we try and cope with these very difficult times, we look for guidance and support from our faith. Sri Krishna told us in Bhagavad Gita, death is certain for one who has been born. Therefore, we should not lament over the inevitable. And this is something that has helped me tide over all the difficulties that I have seen and faced in the last year. At this point, I invite you all to reflect on your own experiences of the past year as I say a prayer to give us all peace, increase our inner strength, and hope to receive auspiciousness from all directions. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Srunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangai Tustuvagum Sastanubhi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. All the chaplains before me have pretty much reflected the same things that I intended to say and have touched on the various aspects that we think would bring us hope. And I conclude with this prayer, seeking us to move from ignorance towards truth, from darkness towards light, and from death towards immortality. And may we all work together. May our efforts be one. Asato ma sadgamaya tamasorma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai.
Thank you, Srihari. In the Christian tradition, we celebrated Easter a few weeks ago. but we continue to be in Eastertide or Easter time. Easter is not just an individual day, but is celebrated for several weeks while we remember the stories of Jesus' ministry after his resurrection. It's tempting when thinking about resurrection to think of it as simply reversing Jesus' death. He died and was buried on Friday and then was found to be not dead on Sunday. It can sort of seem like the bad things were undone, but that's not really quite true. Even after the resurrection, everyone who had wept in sorrow over the weekend still had the legacy of that sorrow in their hearts. To simply undo his death would not honor the realness of those feelings. Simple reversal would undermine the depth of their emotions and their experience. Reversal doesn't allow the outcome of the resurrection to be quite so special or so new, so different either. It's a strange new reality informed by all that happened before and touched by the sorrow of their loss. So Jesus' followers have to adjust and learn new language, a new way to be in a world that is so much the same and so changed at the same time. Nadia Boltz-Weber, who is an American theologian, is in a prayer she posted on her blog, The Corners, said, "Help us, O God. Remember that resurrection isn't reversal. That as we return to life, we are carrying our own wounds from loss and isolation. But we are also emerging with new beauty and new wisdom. We are not who we were, but we do get to discover who we are. Help us not to foreclose on each other. Maybe just grant us a holy curiosity for a while." As we look at life beyond lockdown, it's much like looking at life beyond resurrection. That is, it's not a mere reversal of everything. It's not simply that we were locked down because of this awful pandemic and now, poof, it's all finished and we can turn a key in a lock and be set free. We won't be free from COVID, neither literally nor figuratively. COVID will continue to be with us, hopefully to a much less prominent degree than the last 18 months, but it won't go away. And just as it will linger in the population, it will linger in our souls. We'll tell and retell the stories of our loss, our sacrifices, our community contributions. We'll tell of whole residence halls quarantined and the soul-crushing solitude of distance learning. We'll tell of quiet streets and shuttered pubs and silent concert halls. And we'll also tell about how we brought our elderly neighbor milk and how we brought our extra soup that we made to share with someone who might enjoy it. We'll tell how we wore our masks for ages after getting our vaccines just to make sure everyone was safe. And we'll recount the impact lockdown had on jobs and incomes, family stability, but also the impact it had on carbon emissions and how it proved to us that things could be different and inspired us to travel, to commute differently. We'll tell the story of the grace we witnessed between strangers and the hope we held in our hearts for a life beyond what it was before. As we emerge from lockdown, we do not go back to the way things were, but forward into a life more intentionally more thoughtfully, I'd like to think more gratefully lived. I am not grateful for the sorrow and would, like everyone else, wish that this whole thing had never happened. But I can acknowledge the sorrow and also see the opportunity ahead of us. It's an opportunity we can squander by striving to get back to the way things were or back to normal. Or an opportunity to do things in a whole new way if we have the courage to explore a new way of grace, love, mercy, and action. For the opportunity, the way forward presents each of us and all of humanity to travel differently, act intentionally, to do better by each other and better by our world, I say, thanks be to God. Amen. Now we're going to play Stuart Overington's song, Peace in My Soul, which was sung by the University Choir in the chapel in 2019. As it's playing, you may feel free to stay for as long as the music is playing, or you may wish to leave at your leisure. The service will conclude after the music, and you may go in peace. Let's listen.